Now to black fatigue. It has recently been turned into a feeling that some white and black people have who say they are damn tired of foolishness of some black people, the claims of racism from sunup to sundown, loud talking, fighting, and the list goes on. Not my list now, keep that in mind. But some people are tired of the complaints and don't give a damn.
Well, this is a thing that definitely happened on a local Fox affiliate over in Houston, Texas, on a show called The Isaiah Factor. They decided to produce an 11-minute segment which gathered a whole panel of people to discuss the trending topic that is being referred to as black fatigue. And for those of you who are unaware, this is an idea that has become more popular in recent weeks as a method of referring to people being sick and tired of certain black individuals complaining about racism all the time, and of course certain behaviors that are more commonly seen among black individuals. And this is obviously something that I've seen in my comments, and it's a phrase that I've actually avoided because I don't like to take somebody else's phraseology and insert them into my video, but I find this to be more interesting of a discussion because you actually have black people on both sides of this conversation, as well as white people in this conversation discussing this particular issue. And for me, even though I might not be willing to just adopt the common popular phraseology, just like I don't say crashed out whenever I refer to people melting down on the internet.com, doesn't mean that I am not interested in the debate within the black community about this particular issue. Now, we are going to break this down. I'm going to link the full segment to this, by the way, in the description of this video so you could check it out in full, but I'm also going to link a Greg Foreman video, Black Conservative Perspective, where I actually saw this clip for the first time so you could check out his take, because it's probably going to be different than mine, because as soon as I saw this segment, I decided to shoot this video, and I'm going to watch his video afterwards. But yeah, that will all be linked in the description. Check it out. But before we get into this, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
So right off the top, I just want to say that this guy, Isaiah of the Isaiah Factor, is definitely a character, and I spent an inordinate amount of time wondering on whether or not those glasses were actually real or fake, and I've come to the conclusion that those are in fact his real glasses, because like mine, in certain times when I don't have my lights positioned exactly right, you can actually see the reflection of the light on the glasses. So this is very important information that I wanted to lead off this segment with, and I want you guys to understand that yes, this is what matters.
Here's what one TikTok user had to say about it.
Not racist, and I know y'all have been told this is racist, but it's not. It's not racist to call black people out for their behavior and what they're doing to society at this moment. I'm glad people are noticing this because it's been so many years and it's finally catching up to y'all. I've been trying to tell y'all that white people are tired of y'all. I'm tired of y'all too, but everybody, the world is getting sick of y'all and y'all's. I'm so glad this day is here. I've been trying to get out there that you people need help. It's me, but me and other black conservatives. We've been trying to warn society that this is what it's going to come to when y'all keep coddling black people.
So first of all, while I do appreciate the sentiment expressed by this particular black conservative TikToker, I do want to point out that the word that she's looking for is coddling. Coddling black people, not coddling. This is what happens when you read a word your whole life and you never hear other people pronounce it. You end up saying words like coddling, which don't exist. And yes, this is hypocritical of me, who often misspeaks throughout the course of my videos, but you know what? That doesn't matter. It's my channel. I make the rules, and it is in fact called coddling. Now, I will also point out that there's something else that's a little bit different about the black community in the United States of America, or in reality, black communities plural, because they're not all one or not all a monolith, and that is the idea of collective pride and the inverse of that, which of course is collective shame. Unlike other groups in this country, although we do it to a lesser extent, whenever there's a black person that is successful, their success is often tied to their blackness. You often hear about black excellence. We have Black History Month, which is, wow, look at all these very successful black people. And the point of telling little black kids that throughout their whole lives is that they are supposed to associate themselves with the success of their group members. But of course, as General Iroh taught Prince Zuko, pride is not the opposite of shame. It is in fact the source. And I believe that this actually contributes to the inverse often happening, where black people see negative black behaviors and they start to attribute that failure to themselves as well. I actually think that fundamentally, this is a completely unhealthy mindset for Black America, and I try to not call out the community as a whole, unless, of course, the community is rallying for something a la the O.J. Simpson verdict that's completely immoral. And the reason I don't want to do that is because I don't want to associate Black people positively or negatively with the achievements of one individual Black person or the failures of one individual Black person. So yeah, I think there's something that needs to be had in the meta conversation about this that's not present right here, but that is a sentiment that is being expressed, at least touched on, by this particular Black conservative TikToker that probably should be talked about more amongst Black people themselves, and of course the people who try to sell them on the idea that they're great because this Black person is great, because again, that leads to the inverse being believed to be true. So let's get into the actual segment, but I did want to make that point before we got there.
So first of all, let's define what Black fatigue is supposed to be, Dr. Jones.
Black fatigue is supposed to be just and I'm trying to make it as short as possible. Basically, society is saying that they're tired of how Black people are blaming things that have happened to us historically in the past on what's happening today. And they are also now adding different things that they have seen in society to that behavior as well. As she said, like loud mouthing or maybe, using certain words or certain behaviors in public. So that's basically the definition in a short sense.
So one of the things I actually respect about this woman right here is that even though she's a psychologist and a certified sex therapist, whatever that means, maybe some of you might be interested in her work in that realm, she actually gives a very coherent definition of what Black fatigue is as presented by the people who are actually utilizing the term. That being said, the thing I respect even more about her is that she's able to do this while at the same time completely disagreeing with the premise, and this is such a rare capability for them to actually be able to define the thing that they're against appropriately and be against it, that I just feel a little bit impressed by that, even though she's about to say, oh my god, evil white racism, watch out for the evil white racists.
Do we get anywhere with that, with this conversation?
No, this absolutely
okay, good night, folks.
I mean, the thing is, it's an absolutely pointless conversation. It's like, okay, so now what? Thank you for letting us know that there's a new fancy word of you saying that you're tired of Black people, and you put it on the internet, and now people are co-signing on it, including with the way the environment is already. But it's okay. You put a nice new name to it, and now you feel like it's okay to say. And it's not going to do anything for anybody to now pander this term around, to pass it on in the internet and put it in people's mouth and make people feel encouraged to say, I have Black fatigue. But when we're all tired, when I'm saying we're all tired of something and somewhere, there's always something. So this is not actually going to help anyone psychologically, mentally, emotionally. It's only going to create more divisiveness, more anger, and more hate in society.
So for all the credit and deserved credit that I gave her for accurately defining it in the way that the people are using it actually intended, she then ends up flipping and saying, oh, well, thank you, white people, for telling us that you are tired of us as Black people. And then, of course, she says, they made up a new term and she really doesn't like it, and all this other stuff that honestly goes against the very definition and the very premise that she put forward. However, I do want to point something out, because I don't think that this is the worst faith actor, worst operating person throughout the course of this segment. She does bring up the idea that this is likely to create more divisiveness and whatnot, and I do think to a certain extent, if you're just asserting Black fatigue in response to any video or any behavior that has to do with an individual Black person, then yeah, you are going to create division. Again, one of the reasons why I personally want to adopt this terminology, because again, I'm not just going to copy and paste whatever the insert lingo from the internet is, but in addition to that, I do think it ends up leading to some negative consequences, even if it's not intended. However, I actually appreciate the people within this panel for having this discussion, because you want these ideas and these problems within the Black community to be worked on, because for far too long we're being sold by the mainstream media that the Black population needs to hold up the worst among them, their criminal types, as their symbols, a la George Floyd with his criminal history, a la Michael Brown, who by the way was shot justifiably according to the Department of Justice report, based on all the witnesses and forensic evidence, witnesses that were telling the truth, by the way, not the ones that were lying. And yeah, it does get to the point where people get sick of it, but but labeling this or attaching this to black people as a whole ends up creating the problem. So I can see where she's coming from, even if I don't like the fact that she defined it perfectly fine in her initial statement and then immediately churned it and flipped it in her second statement.
And when we see a lot of people, especially black people, joining that chorus, saying that I'm tired of black people too, what will that do?
It's not going to do anything, because here's the thing, that black person or the black people that are on the internet saying that can go somewhere and they're going to be already stereotyped into the group that they're trying to separate themselves from just because they're black.
So right here, again, Angela, the sex therapist, brings up an interesting point, but I don't think it actually supports her argument, because one of the issues that certain black people have with this casting of a wide net, with this broad behavior being attributed to the group as a whole, with criminals and basically the worst among their population being presented as the martyrs and representatives of their population, is exactly that reason right there, is that if they're among a group of black people, they are associated by their race, which again, black people are promoting as the primary identifying factor with those people and their piss poor behavior. This is one of the reasons why I actually think this conversation within the black community is pretty good, because what you're trying to do is create some kind of incentive within the community to police behavior within the community. That's something I'm totally on board with. And by the way, if you read a lot of Thomas Sowell's work, one of the things that you'll discover is that this is something that other ethnic groups, and by the way, including northern blacks versus southern black behavior, have done in the past, and it's ended up correcting, in a lot of cases, bad behavior that led to a negative perception of the group as a whole. Now again, that's not saying that you should judge individuals by group data or group observations. It's just acknowledging that people do this. They do judge when they don't have additional context and additional information based on the things that they broadly know and are broadly presented to them. And if this is the front face of the black community that is presented to us online, and I'm talking about for the people who don't actually know a lot of black people, then that is how they will react. That is how they will respond, where they end up grouping them together.
All right, Angela, let's hear from you. Your thoughts about this black fatigue.
Well, with all due respect to Angela, number one, I really disagree with this. It is a completely behavior-based issue. And when white people, black people, Hispanic people are saying we have black fatigue because of the behavior of some black people, we've all seen it. We all know what it is. It's everywhere.
So first of all, a couple of things. One, this woman very happily just gave up the title of Angela number one in this particular segment. But two, and this is absolutely crucial as well, her name is Angela Box. Angela Box is sitting next to Angela the sex therapist, and all I have to say is that cannot be a coincidence. This cannot be staged. But in addition to that, this woman is very boldly standing on what she believes. She's stating it quite clearly. She says, we all know what we're talking about. We all know the behavior that's reprehensible that we constantly see on social media, and we're sick of it. We're not into it. And this is what people of all races are actually bringing up. So I kind of give this woman a lot of credit. She comes in here blonde-haired, blue-eyed, bright pink, not trying to hide at all. And she speaks directly to the heart of the issue and what is being highlighted again by this term black fatigue. This is somebody I did not expect to appear on a random local news segment out in the city of Houston, but here she is speaking very succinctly about the issues that she wants to address, and I give her credit for that.
A lot of these things come back to what the Democrat Party has done to the black community, purposefully. Starting with the Great Society of Lyndon B. Johnson, who he famously said, I'm going to have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. When Democrats said you don't need fathers in the home, you can be on welfare and have as many babies as you want, and oh, by the way, we're going to destroy public schools, and we're going to make sure that behavior standards are seen as racist. So the out-of-control behavior that we've seen in the classrooms, in society, all over, is part and parcel of what the Democrat Party has done to the black community.
All right. So here you have her highlighting a bunch of different things that you've heard from many a Republican over the years. Obviously, she's attributing a motive to the Democratic Party at the time, like they knew that they were going to remove black fathers from the household and all these different problems would result as a consequence of that. Whether you believe in that more conspiratorial narrative that it was by design or not, the fact is the welfare programs being instituted did have a very negative negative impact on family structure in this country, and disproportionately, it had a negative impact on the black family structure in this nation. Before the Civil Rights Act, before the Great Society programs, black people undoubtedly faced unfair discrimination, but a part of facing unfair discrimination is that they were more of a close-knit community. They had built their own institutions, and they had a more stable family, or more stable family structures within their communities. Now, if they could have carried that through post the Civil Rights Act, that would have been wonderful, but the fact is, the Great Society programs that basically incentivize people to have more children out of wedlock end up creating financial incentives for what we know now by the data is undoubtedly bad and destructive behavior. So those are just facts. That's something that we have to deal with. That's something that we have to address. Again, whether you want to say it's intentional by the Democrats to put black mothers on welfare and that they had no agency in the process, that is up to you. I don't really care about that conversation. What I do care about is the fact that people respond to incentives, and a lot of women in the black community have responded to the incentives of the welfare state in such a way that is negative to that community. And as we know, especially for boys, they need a father in the household, and typically bad outcomes are associated with fatherlessness.
Eugene, let's hear from you before we have to take a break.
Man, why are we all... What does the Democrat Party have to do with black people?
Everything.
Hold on. Okay, first of all, I think he asked Eugene. So last time I checked, I'm Eugene on stage.
So one of the reasons why I gave Angela Jones such a break for actually being able to define what people were talking about, even though she disagreed with it, even though she kind of strawmanned it in her second statement, is because this guy right here is actually the worst actor on this entire panel. He opens up his statement after being allotted time by the host Isaiah by saying, "What does the Democratic Party have to do with anything?" The woman who went before him, Angela number 2, Angela Box, who's sitting next to the sex therapist, says everything. She answers his question, which was clearly and obviously referring to what she just said, and immediately he's like, "Oh, he said it was for me, it was for Eugene. I'm gonna speak in my time," as if he did not provoke that response. Again, this is a microcosm, a little itty bitty baby example of somebody playing the victim, even though they're engaging in the conversation and they provoked that response within the conversation.
So the Democratic Party has nothing to do with black fatigue. What the original term from the actual black community of black fatigue was after every other community decided to vote, since you want to talk politics, Donald Trump, then black folks said, we're going to sit this one out. We're going to let this thing burn down, and we're going to go have a good time because we're tired. We have been struggling. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents have been fighting this same fight. So if you guys want to turn around, you know, he said the N-word, why don't you guys feel so comfortable? Just say it.
So again, this is the low level of engagement with the conversation that we have right here. So he starts off by saying, oh, black fatigue originally referred to post the election, black people saying that they weren't going to go out and protest, they weren't going to object because every other group didn't stand by the Democratic Party, and therefore black people aren't going to stand by them. And again, nobody's asking you to do that. Nobody's asking you to come out and protest. There's very little regretting of the votes for the people who voted for Donald Trump. And I think by the last polling by that guy at CNN or MSNBC, I forget which one, constantly does the polls, Trump would win by a bigger margin today than he won by on November on election day. So again, this is just not a realistic representation of how people are actually feeling in this nation. But of course, it ends up devolving even further when he's like, oh, something N-word, and why don't you just say it? All you white people just want to say the N-word. I dare you to say the N-word, because again, this is the low level of conversation that we've gotten to. And to be clear, I don't think there should be this stigma around people using a particular word. I find it to be absurd and illogical and whatnot. And obviously, this guy is trying to bait somebody into trying to ruin their career because he understands that this is a double standard.
Just go ahead and say the N-word. We're you know, if it's so okay, if you're so fatigued, if you don't want to recognize the civil rights plight, go ahead and say the N-word. No one's stopping you. It's a free country,
not on
right?
this show, Eugene.
I mean, I'm just saying.
To lose me my show.
And by the way, this is the kind of behavior from somebody who's in the professional victim class that people are tired of. Again, this guy's a political activist. He seems like he's doing all right, but he's playing the victim, talking about generations upon generations of struggles and how the evil orange man is representative of what his parents, his grandparents, his great-grandparents were all fighting against. Honestly, just shut up, bro. It's just regular, ordinary politics. We are well past the civil Rights Act, black people can achieve, you can do, you should go do, rather than complaining about evil white racists that are just itching to say the N-word. It's just a word. You can endure it. Believe me, I respect you more than you respect yourself.
But that's my point. It's a lot of things that they want to use code words, whether it's DEI, whether it's black fatigue. They just want to be able to say the N-word without being able to say the N-word.
So to be clear, DEI is not a code word for the N-word. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is a real set of policies that actually exist, that are promoted in the affirmative by the Democratic Party. And honestly, it's one of their rebrands of affirmative action, which has fallen out of favor amongst the American population. The fact that these people can't stand that people opposing them will take their own phraseology and make a joke out of it is one of the reasons why they're so upset, they're so angry. And again, the right wing did it successfully with woke, they did it successfully with DEI, and really, he's like trying to say, oh, all these people desperately are just trying to say the N-word, they just want to go after black people, when in reality, guess what? You're not the main character in this situation. Again, a lot of people called out affirmative action because it was discriminatory against Asians. It actually ended up aiding other groups. Obviously, it did hurt white people, and black people were definitely a huge beneficiary in that, but that was about fairness and about how there's no real justification to get revenge for the Civil Rights Act to lower Asian scores by the metrics by something like 200 to 400 points in order to allow other less qualified people into these programs or into these universities or into these jobs. So again, it's not about saying the N-word. Not everybody's obsessed with calling you that no-no word. Again, relax, chill out. You don't have to panic. It's okay. You're on a panel. You have equal time with all these other people. Just be an adult for 10 seconds.
So do you not find certain behaviors objectionable? Or you think it's cool?
Listen, I live in a real community. I see a whole bunch of unruly white folks, Hispanic folks. So it's not just the black community, but we always want to emphasize on black when it's negative.
All right.
Now again, I'm trying to be more positive with the people that I'm responding to, with the people that I'm reacting to. So I do want to point out that yes, it should be, if you're going to use the term black fatigue, about the behavior, this kind of hood mindset or ratchet behavior as it used to be called. This is what is being called out, or at least you hope this is what is being called out. And to that extent, I agree with him, even though again, he's trying to use other groups to divert from the topic at hand when he was asked a direct question.
Do you at all see the black community as a lost cause or just some individuals? What?
I don't believe the black community is a lost cause at all. I just believe that we need to stop as a whole with all of this complaining. We need to move past the past and, become better. As an American, my parents were actually Nigerian. They came here in the 80s and they grew up here. They had me and my brothers, and we're all successful and not one complaint through our entire childhood. They said, work for what you need, work for what you're going to get, and you will get it. God placed talent in all of us, black, white, whatever you may, call yourself, but God placed, all of these great things within us. Why should I now say, oh, well, a white person thinks this of me, or there's racism here and there? I don't think about that. I don't wake up every morning and have racism and all of these negative things on my mind. I move forward and I move past that.
All right.
So look, right here we have somebody that is of Nigerian descent, and she talks about how this is a toxic mindset and people should be taught to work in order to achieve, because she believes from being a Nigerian immigrant or being the child of Nigerian immigrants that this is how you achieve. And one of the other things that we find out is the first woman that spoke, Angela number 1, the psychologist and sex therapist, she is actually a first-generation immigrant to the United States of America as well, which is kind of hilarious because she's talking about being held back for generations when in reality she hasn't even been here for generations. Her line hasn't been here for generations, and she obviously first generation became a doctor. It's a psychologist or psychiatrist, but still a doctor. Still impressive. Still an achievement that she got through her hard work. Hopefully.
The conversation that we're having here is whether black fatigue is a real thing. But the problem is that the reason this topic has come back up is because of the viral video that recently came out of the woman that called a 5-year-old autistic kid the N-word. Mm-hmm. And then she raised $700,000 by a Christian organization, and I am Christian as well, so I just want to put that out there as well. And she raised $300,000 from another organization. I don't know if she actually got that money, but then this video from the person who originally started putting this on TikTok came out in reference to that. Yeah. Now, I am a first-generation American as well, and I was taught a certain way as well, but what we cannot ignore is the things that have set us back as a community. The reason we are not where we're supposed to be is because we are still only a couple of decades away from what we have been oppressed from.
Now look, I've actually spoken quite clearly on how I feel about raising nearly $750,000 for Shiloh Hendricks and pretending that this is some mega statement against cancel culture or against woke culture, when in my opinion, there were many different circumstances of white women who were framed as Karens who did not do the thing that they were accused of. But I do want to point out, and this is absolutely crucial, is that we have never gotten any confirmation at all whatsoever that the child in question was age 5 or was autistic. This is victim maxing, and it does not need to be done in this particular circumstance because it's inappropriate to call a child who, again, looks like he's about age 10, probably doesn't have any mental disability, a racial epithet in a moment of anger, and then to double down on it in your Give, Send, Go fundraiser as Shiloh did. Again, these people just have to try to maximize the victimization to the extent where it goes to absurdity when it's totally not necessary, and this is part of the things that people are tired of. But again, I will leave this off to you guys out there in the audience. I did find this panel to be quite interesting. Again, the full panel will be linked in the description of this video if you want to check it out for yourself, but I want to know what you guys think. Do you think the term black fatigue should be gaining popularity? Do you think my position on it is actually accurate, or do you think it's accurate for me, even if you want to use it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this black fatigue panel. Till next time.